TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of RIo Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote Southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of RIo Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dingle. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome back to our show. It's really great to be back today. You know, Jason, this is sort of a special show for me. And one of the reasons in our listening audience, we have a 2 o'clock show with some special guests. And more importantly, we have a special guest. We have been trying to get Dr. Sachs on our program, but his schedule, he's just about everywhere on campus. And finally, we were able to bring him on to the show. And perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit about Dr. Sachs, where he comes from. He is the provost. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions I'm going to be asking is just what is a provost?
Well, I'm sure, Pat, he'll be happy to elaborate on that a little bit and tell us what a provost actually does. But for our listeners today, we do have a very special guest, Dr. Richard Sachs. He has been with the University of RIo Grande now for about 7 months. He started in July 1 of last year, and he's got to know the area and the region and the University of RIo Grande quite well. So, Dr. Sachs, welcome to our show.
Great, thank you. It's nice to be here.
So let's start. What is a provost?
Well, all institutions have a vice president for academic affairs who's the leader of the faculty, the head of the curriculum and hiring and evaluating faculty. The term provost is used at many institutions. I guess the simple way to define it would be a VPAA on steroids or a bulked up VPAA, because in addition to just overseeing the faculty and staff in academic affairs, the term provost is used when there are other responsibilities. At some institutions you oversee athletics, here I don't. I do oversee the library, I oversee the advising center, so there's a number of other areas in addition to just being the academic vice president. And you're absolutely right, provost is a term that's used only in higher education and almost nobody knows what it means. I have 5 children between the age of 26 and 8, and last Sunday, as we were both reading in the living room, my 8-year-old turned to me and, apropos of nothing, said, "Dad, what's a provost?" so I've actually been a dean or a provost for over 20 years at 4 different schools, but he took the time to ask me that last Sunday, and I tried to explain as clearly as I could.
Well, I had an opportunity to go on your website. At the University of RIo Grande, I did not know this, and I have been associated with University of RIo Grande for the last 5 years. You have more than 60 associate, bachelor, and graduate programs of study that reflect the diversity and creativity of the faculty and the students.
Well, yes, we can't be all things to all people. I've always told my faculty we can do anything we want, but we can't do everything we want. We have 2,200 students. We have 84 full-time faculty. We have to hire between 70 and 90 adjunct or part-time faculty each term. So we have most of the areas I think that most students would want to take at the undergraduate level, with the exception of engineering, although we do offer pre-engineering courses if students want to come here for a few years and do the basic math and science that they'll need for an engineering program. We are governed by a number of different bodies. Of course, we have boards of trustees for both the community college and the university. In addition to that, I have to answer to Ohio Board of Regents. In addition to that, I have to answer to the Higher Learning Commission in Chicago, which governs accreditation in 19 states. In addition to that, we have 5 different programs, including Jason Winters' program, which has an outside accreditor. We have IACBE for business. So we have to respond to a number of different areas, and we have to keep everybody happy.
So it can be truly said that your most favorite group is, of course, the business group.
Oh, the business group is wonderful, and it's very important. And actually, I would argue that any institution of higher learning should be an engine for development in the area. And I think the business faculty, almost to a person, at least all the full-time business faculty that I know, they all have connections to the community, and that's really important. We have advisory boards in various areas where we have people in the area who communicate to us. I joined Gallipolis Rotary last July when I came here.
It's a good program.
And yeah, and I always make the first 2 meetings of the month because it's 7 in the morning. The 3rd and 4th are problematic because it's at noon, and they've done that so that they catch more people, but it's difficult for me to leave campus or leave Columbus or Chillicothe, wherever I am, to make those lunch meetings. But that's another time when people can buttonhole me and say, Richard, why aren't you guys doing this at RIo? And again, I try to keep my ears open because I think we have to be responsive to the community. One of the arguments I've always made is we are a nonprofit institution like all the public and most of the private institutions in the country are. That means we're not on the tax rolls, but we provide things for the area way beyond the cost of what the land taxes would be. We do so many good things for the area, and you know, I think we're one of the really positive motivating factors in this region in the Ohio Valley.
Richard, I do want to spend more time on academics, and there's a lot of topics we're going to talk about today. But first of all, let's go back a little bit, and I want to learn more about you. Tell our listeners a little bit about you, what your background is,
Sure.
your family. You can talk about everything except from that one school that you went to up north.
Okay, I won't mention that then. How many hours do we have for this? I guess what I have to say is I'm one of 3 boys. I'm the middle of 3 boys raised by a single mom who was a pediatrician. My mom, who passed away in 2008, was one of only 2 women in a class of 95 at Western Reserve Medical School in 1952. As she raised us in the 50s and 60s, she would always introduce us as her 3 little doctors. And the expectation was we were all going to be MDs like her. My older brother's a radiologist in Houston. My younger brother's in family practice in rural PA between Lancaster and Philadelphia. And I'm the screw up. I hated the sciences growing up, and I loved literature and I loved reading, and I decided I was going to be a novelist. So I think in another family, I would have gone off to San Francisco or Paris and waited tables and written a book, but my mom would have killed me. So instead I went off to college and decided I'd be an English major. And I went to Haverford College, the oldest Quaker college in the country. I had a phenomenal education. If I could just tell you a brief anecdote from that, I'll try to say this as quickly as possible. I was one of 4 students in a class with a French professor, and I made a comment early in my fall term of my freshman year, and he said, Mr. Sachs, that's very interesting, but 3 weeks ago you said this, this, and that. Now, how do you reconcile that with what you said today? Well, as a 17-year-old freshman, I couldn't reconcile it, but by the time I was a 21-year-old senior, I really could. So I went off to a doctoral program at what Woody Hayes called that school up north. And
You mean at Ann Arbor?
Ann Arbor, Ann's
okay.
Arbor, which
Yeah, Ann
it used to be called something Landing, and there was a woman, Ann, and it was Ann's Arbor, her grove of trees, which is now Ann Arbor. Received my master's and PhD there, started to teach part-time at Wayne State and at what was Madonna College, and within a year Madonna asked me to apply for a full-time job, and I said I'm going to finish my PhD in a few years and do a national search. They said you should apply. So I applied and got the job in 1985, tenure track job in English, and I started teaching at this mostly commuter school in suburban Detroit, and I just loved it. I loved the teaching. And I did write a novel. It was totally unpublishable. I put it away on a shelf. And my writing now is writing grants and writing articles. I wrote a Melville dissertation, so I was a 19th century Americanist, but I've been at smaller schools, so I've had to teach a little bit of everything in British and American Lit. And I truly enjoy it. The last 3 jobs I've had have had no teaching requirement, but I negotiated with the president who was here, and I said, I like to teach 1 class per term as an adjunct. You don't need to pay me. I just want to stay in the classroom. And as I've joked to the English department, you'd have to pay me to teach composition, which I've done for years. But that's hard work. I love teaching literature, and I'm actually teaching an American Indian literature class on Wednesday nights, 6 to 8:40.
Well, as a matter of fact, did not Dr. Johnston join you in part of the teaching part of the class?
Oh, that was in the fall. We had a
Yeah.
faculty member who left midterm, and we were trying to cover her classes. So Dr. Johnston and I took over the LA 100 class, the gateway class, and she couldn't make all the sessions because it was midday on a Thursday, and I couldn't make all the sessions. So I think there were 6 sessions left, and she taught 3 and I taught 3. And it's always great fun meeting the students. Actually, walking across campus just now, I said hello to 2 of the 14 students in that class. And I think it's good for them to get to know the provost or the president on an individual basis and realize you're not just, somebody in a coat and tie, but you're a teacher and you can laugh with them and you can learn with them.
So you've been here 6, 7 months now.
Right.
How does RIo compare to some of the other places you've been?
What's very interesting, I was a branch campus dean at University of New Mexico, and everybody says, oh, UNM Valencia, that was so different. The student profile is almost identical. The ethnic orientation is totally different. I mean, my campus was 60% Hispanic. And obviously this part of the country is not. But in terms of having a lot of what we call FIDIACs, first time in any college, first person in the family to go to college, in terms of K through 12 district, K through 12 districts that don't always send a lot of students to college, and often those students need remediation when they get to college. So a lot of the challenges I had in New Mexico, a lot of the challenges I had before then as VPA at Lake Erie College, a lot of the challenges I had when I was in southwestern Colorado as a state college dean there are very similar to here. I love the Ohio Valley. I've always loved Appalachia. I've played guitar very poorly since I was in my teens, and I always say it's because I broke that finger, that pinky finger 3 times playing basketball, but the truth is I just don't put enough time.
So your wife was much better at playing basketball than you?
My wife's very tall, but she has no hand-eye coordination, and she would admit that. I'm 6'5", my wife is 5'11", and she was a cheerleader in high school and college, and she loves sailing and swimming, which are not ball and stick sports. I love throwing a football around or something, but I've learned not to do it anymore because I don't want to break her nose again.
And you live in the Gallipolis, the downtown area?
I live right in downtown Gallipolis. I fell in love with Gallipolis. I love the 19th century architecture. I love the downtown park. I live right by the park. I love the view of the Ohio River. At times in the summer on weekends, I would sit on a bench and just read for an hour or 2 and watch the barges go up and down and various things like that. I have my second oldest son who was a triathlete in college. His favorite restaurant in the country is Buffalo Wild Wings, and when he came to visit at Christmas time, I took him down to Courtside because that's one of my favorite restaurants, and it's a great sports bar. And even though we have a B3 here in Gallipolis, I went to it once when I was interviewing in February, and I haven't been back. Just because I really believe it's important to spend your money in the community and to benefit the small business people here.
Well, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about the area that you have. That originally it was an area that was designated by the community as a growth area, and so they started helping small businesses get involved. And right next door to Courtside, which is a really great restaurant, is also Sweet Blessing.
Sure.
Restaurant, which has excellent food. Around the corner is another coffee shop. Is there?
Yeah, I think it closed.
Oh, okay.
I think it closed.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I've been looking for a downtown coffee shop, and there aren't any. I was told there was one, but it closed. It closed
Right.
before I moved in July. But I think it was open recently.
But interesting. Some of the community are putting in different kinds of businesses to attract downtown.
Right.
Because the park is perhaps one of the nice areas where you can go on a Sunday or a Saturday. And
Right. And I can tell you there are events almost every weekend in the park during the summer. I had never driven a tractor. I guess I have to say I lied about it because Rotary was saying, oh, we need somebody to check passes at the bouncy thing, and we need somebody to drive the tractor. I said, I'll drive the tractor. And they said, have you ever driven a tractor before? I said, sure. And it was an automatic. I mean, I love stick shifts, but it was an automatic tractor, and it had 3 little carts behind it. And I would pull around. This was at the Chili Fest. this fall, and little kids would get in the cart, and I would drive them around the grassy park, and then get out, and it was great fun. But it is exciting. There's a lot of activity downtown. Again, most of the businesses are north of downtown on Route 7. And I've heard, I wasn't here when the Walmart came in, but I think when the Walmart's built there and then the things go around there, you can make a really strong business plan for that area. Old downtowns, it's much more problematic. But again, the classic architecture we have, the commitment we have from Chamber of Commerce and the business people downtown, I think we can really be viable. But having worked a lot of my life in the Detroit metro area and greater Cleveland, the old cities, they come back in gaps. There's little areas. I don't think the whole city's going to come back the way it might have been in 1890 or 1920. But you have to give people good reasons to come, and they will.
Yeah, that is true.
Well, Richard, you mentioned a little bit about the diversity of our students here on campus, and when I think of diversity, the first thing that pops into my mind is we don't all have 19 and 20-year-old students here. Do you want to talk a little bit about the diversity as far as our non-traditional students, which are adults on campus,
right,
but also a new program that's implemented by the state called College Credit Plus, which
Sure.
brings high school
Yeah.
students on our campus as well?
Yeah. Well, as I said before, we can't be all things to all people, but I think, honestly, RIo does a great job of recruiting people, not just 18 to 80, but now we could say 14 to 80. People are familiar with the PSO or PSEO program, the Post-Secondary Educational Options Program, which Ohio's had for at least a decade, maybe longer. HB 487, which was passed in June of last year, identifies the new program that starts in fall of 2015, is known as College Credit Plus. And every public high school in the state has to have a memorandum of understanding with at least one institution of higher education. There are 10 public high schools in the four-county area that's our community college area. And I've gone out with Rebecca Long, the vice president of the community college. We've met with people from all 10 high schools. We're talking to some other high schools slightly outside our district. And we're making return visits now so that by hopefully early March, all the high schools will have a clear understanding of which college courses will be offered. They can be offered on a RIo campus, whether it's our main campus or MEGS or Vinton, the MacArthur Center. We can offer it on the high school campus. We can offer it online. And so, as is the case with many things, the devil's in the details. And we are trying to fine-tune, and the term I use is narrowcast. It's not a broadcast like the farmers did when they were planting seeds. It's a narrowcast. We're narrowcasting our programs to each individual institution. And the high schools are generally very excited about the possibility. Part of Governor Kasich's vision is that in the future, all Ohio high school students will need only 3 years of college, not 4, because they will have taken so much College Credit Plus. And it will be part of the high school's report cards beginning in 2016. How many of your students are in College Credit Plus? How many credits are they earning? So this will create some big changes with us. I think as we start to budget for next year, I think I'm going to try to seek a full-time advisor just to focus on College Credit Plus. Because this past year we had about 120 PSEO students within our 2,200 student body. I think we're going to have at least 300, maybe as many as 500 or more students. So obviously that will create work for at least one more advisor. And there's a lot of dynamics to it. But if you go to the Ohio Board of Regents website, there are PowerPoints you can click on. Or if you Google HB 487, it's a huge long bill and only one part of it deals with College Credit Plus, but there's more information on that. And as Jason knows from previous conversations with me, I could talk about this all day, and
You have my curiosity. So suppose I'm a sophomore in one of the high schools.
That's going to take some imagination. We can try.
A long time ago. But let's just suppose a long time ago is now here. I'm a sophomore in high school. What would it take for me to possibly enter into one of the classes that you have here?
Sure. Well, you'll have a high school advisor. You will also, if you do that, you'll have a college advisor. We'll be creating memoranda of understandings with each of these institutions. Those will be on our website. They'll also be on the school district website. We'll be doing informational sessions at each of the high schools this spring for students and their parents so that they understand what's happening. The funding provides for up to 30 credits per year, which would be a full year of college. I don't think any high school student is going to do a full 30 credits in 1 year, but that is the option. Summer is not funded, so if students go during the summer, they're self-pay, but they could take up to 15 credits in the fall and 15 credits in the spring. In addition, the MOUs have to have what they call career pathways. The old PSEO system, a student could take a course here and a course there, and it was mostly just the best and brightest high school students who were doing it, and they generally selected well. But apparently there was anecdotal evidence in Columbus that said we want to make certain that students don't take a few courses that won't transfer to college. So what I have done now is create some sample pathways, and we started just with general education. That's part of what we call the Ohio Transfer Module. And actually I'm having a meeting tomorrow at Wellston School District to show them that. So for example, if a student at Wellston High School takes these general education courses, whether it's 3 credits or 6 or 9, or a full 15 credits, which would be half a year, or a full 30 credits, which would be a full year, those are part of the Ohio Transfer Module. What that means is that will count as general education credit at any of the 23 public community colleges in Ohio, at any of the 34 four-year universities in Ohio, and it will likely could work for any institution in North America. Again, there's some slight differences as you go from state to state, but if the students stay within Ohio, those credits will count. And what you're doing then, if Governor Kasich's vision is realized, if suddenly students are staying as undergrads only for 3 years rather than 4, then they can go into the workforce more quickly. Then there's less family money and state money going toward their education at the college level. Then they can go on to law school or medical school or get an MBA or do whatever they want more quickly. So there's a lot of real positive things about it, and I'm really looking forward to it.
The pathway that you're talking about that you're taking to Wellston tomorrow, do you have that available on our website?
Not yet, but I have it on my laptop. I could send it to you.
Okay.
And I think as we start to make these agreements, I will start linking those to the website. Some other suggestions are perhaps a STEM pathway, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Some places have said, oh, we want a fine arts pathway, or we want a humanities pathway, or things like that. So we could create any of those that are desirable. STEM is really sexy nowadays because, again, these are generally very good, very high-tech, true 21st century jobs. But having said that, only 23% of the college majors in this country are STEM majors. So, and that percentage might go up. We want it to go up. I know when I was in graduate school at an unmentioned school north of here, 90% of the science and engineering doctoral students were foreign nationals. And that's the case at a lot of research universities. So there is a push towards STEM, but again, if students can't do the algebra, if they can't do the trig that's necessary to learn in STEM areas, I mean, there's still wonderful professions for them. And, I don't want to push students into something they don't want to do.
So how have you found the students when they come on campus or they take hybrid or online, et cetera? How do they do in working with much older students, even though they're traditional?
Well, that's an interesting dynamic. Generally, I've never seen the TV program Doogie Howser, but I think Doogie Howser did horrible violence to the rest of us because most 14-year-old kids do not have the maturity level to be in a college classroom, let alone, be a doctor and have good patient bedside manner and things like that. So I think there are some interesting dynamics involved there. Also, for example, we have a film class here, And I was talking to the English professor who teaches film, and she was worried because she had some high school students in the class, and she was going to show R-rated films. And I said, you know, you've got to make certain this is okay with the students' parents. If I have students who are 18 or older, for example, when I teach contemporary lit, if I'm teaching a 19th century American literature course, there's going to be no sexuality, there's going to be no swearing. But if I'm teaching a contemporary literature course, there might be excellent literature that has descriptions of sexuality or that has swear words. And I actually tell my students when I teach contemporary lit, I said, if swearing or if descriptions of sexuality bother you, don't take this course. Take my early American lit course in the fall instead, because I'm not here to insult your values. On the other hand, I'm not going to censor myself because I'm worried because there's a 16-year-old kid in the classroom. So there certainly are some interesting dynamics. Having said that, there's some wonderful dynamics that occur because when you have a 15-year-old and a 22-year-old and a 30-year-old divorcee and a 60-year-old grandmother in the same class, especially when I'm teaching literature, I love that because I have people with all these life experiences and the students teach each other, and that's a really wonderful dynamic.
Right. I can speak to that on a personal note. You know, Pat, you see my son Joshua,
Yes.
who is 16 on campus,
Yes.
and he's doing the PSEO program now. And he's being challenged in class. He loves the diversity. You know, he's in there working with other college students, and he's learning so much from the experience. And you know, it's, as a parent, it's really enriching to me to see him coming home excited about what he's learning and watching him enjoy doing homework. You know, that didn't happen previously. So
Sure.
there's a lot of wonderful benefits of this program to bring those college students who have that ability onto campus to learn
That
the
is
other
true.
environment.
That is true. I wish they would have had that back in my days. But of course, you know, we had just one room with
You had the coal burning little
we had
wood
to
burner in the
re-coal, yes,
center.
yes, we had to re-coal. One quick before we're almost finished. You have done a lot of studies in Native American.
Right.
What tribe?
Oh.
And are you part of?
There are huge differences from one area of the country to another. I can tell you exactly what happened. I was in graduate school. It was the early 80s, and some young professors were having canon lectures. That's C-A-N-O-N, like what's in the literary canon and what's not. And as we've taught increasing numbers of women and writers of color, suddenly you can't teach Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Faulkner. You have to teach one of them. And so there are big arguments about how can we drop Faulkner out of the curriculum for Alice Walker or something like that. So they were having discussions about that. And some of the young professors were saying ceremonies. We have to teach ceremonies. And I said, what? And so I asked after a lecture, what do you mean? They go, no, ceremony. It's a 1977 novel written by Leslie Marmon Silko. So I went off and read it. This is in 1984 or so. And I was amazed by it. I mean, it was just like the light shone. And I wanted to try to learn more about American Indian studies. Well, one of the issues is all American Indian languages have been oral. They're not written. You know, if I want to be a Chaucer scholar, I can read 600 years of Chaucer scholarship, and in a month I'll be ready to teach the course. There was nothing written down in the 80s. And so I learned through a fellow doctoral student who was in Oglala, Lakota. I learned through going to conferences and things like that. I've published a number of papers, 3 book chapters in American Indian Studies. I serve as the chair of American Indian Literatures and Cultures at the American Culture Association. We have an annual meeting. It'll be in New Orleans this year. I'll present a paper and I'll chair the sessions. So I've learned a lot from it, and it's just wonderful teaching it. But if there's one novel I would recommend, it's the Moby Dick of the 20th century in American Indian Lit. It's Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. It's a wonderful work. And now we have people like Sherman Alexie and Susan Power and Louise Erdrich. There are so many great authors. So I'm teaching a night class in that on Wednesday nights.
We have to have you come back.
Okay. Okay.
You know, it's just been a pleasure to have Dr. Sachs come to, first of all, the University of RIo Grande.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
As a matter of fact, we got an email from somebody from South America who said, all three of us have been pronouncing Rio Grande wrong.
They pronounce it differently in New Mexico. They're
Yes.
totally right. Yeah.
But it's really been a pleasure having you on. And we do hope that you come back. We hope that you stay for a long time.
I plan on doing that.
And just continue with being in the community. At 2 o'clock, Jason, we have our Agri Talk. Agri Talk is talking about agriculture in the current years. And at Ohio State University South Centers, there's a large research center that does a lot of different things.
And you've been sprouting your potatoes, and you're ready to get them in during the Ides of March, correct?
I think so, yes. We'll have to find out from them if that is true or not. But we're looking forward to having them. Doctor, again, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I'm Patrick.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jason.
I'm Richard.
Thank you for listening to Business Talk.